So here we are in Artistic Crystals, and we're going to be showing you how to utilize some of the various tools in Artistic Crystals with an example here. So let me just come in here and import a JPEG. Now when we choose a JPEG, we have some options to use it as a backdrop for tracing purposes, or we can trace the object and convert it to a vector outline. And that's what we're going to attempt to do with this particular image. And we'll go ahead and choose Next. It gives us some options. You can see the image that we're looking to trace, and we go ahead and choose Trace and Finish, and this is the result we get. Now, in order to really see what we're getting here, we're actually getting two pieces of the puzzle. So the first piece is the outline of our bitmap. See that? Outline of the JPEG, so we can just dispose of that. What we're looking to do is we want this interior piece. So let me just click on that and drag it up here so we can really get a good look at this. So this is the trace object, and if we zoom in really tight, you can see that it's actually pretty decent. I'm pretty happy with that. You can see that they're actually like straight line segments, but when we're for rhinestone work, it's gonna be excellent. Now, right now, this is itty bitty. This there's 25.4 millimeters in an inch. And so this is 33 millimeters, so it's really tiny. And of course, that's not going to work very well when we're working with rhinestones. So we need to make this much larger. So again, 25.4 millimeters per inch, and we want it to say 9.5 inches or so. So if we scale this up to say about 240 millimeters, I don't know what we did there, 240 millimeters. Now it's nice and big, and there we have it. Okay, so that's much better. And when I look at it again, I zoom in really tight here, you can see these lines smooth out just a little bit. But again, for our purpose of what we're doing here inside Artistic Crystals, it's actually going to work really well. Now that we have all that, now what we need to do is we need to look at applying the crystals to this vector image that we have here. And so to do that, what we're going to have to do is, if you look over here where it says Object Properties, there's two options. There's a Fill option with the paint bucket, and then there's this little pencil, which is our Outline Properties. Now we can't click on this tab, which is fairly annoying, because right now there is no outline property for the selected object. So how do we add an outline property? Well, what we need to do is right click anywhere up here in the gray area here and come down here and choose palette, and this little palette's open. If I click on this little tack, it'll leave that. I just come down here, you can see that is down here, and that's actually kind of nice that it will automatically disappear, or if I don't want that, if I want to pin that and just leave it open, I can do that too. Okay, now to give this an outline property, you see these funky looking squares here, and what these are, if I click on the upper if I hover over the upper left hand corner, look, I get a little tiny pencil, and if I move it down just a little bit, I get a little paint bucket. So the paint bucket takes care of my fill, and then the outline, the upper blank area, takes care of my outline. So now I've actually applied a blue outline to this. So I could come over now and click on my little pencil icon, and now you can see I can actually give it a satin serial. If I zoom in here, you can see I actually have an embroidery stitch. You say, well, why do I want to do embroidery when I'm working with rhinestones? I don't really understand completely the logic behind that, but it's kind of cool that we can do both. But at any rate, we want to apply rhinestones to this. So I can choose on crystals. Right here, choose crystals, and it applies the crystals to my design. And then I could further come in here and choose a certain color of crystal. I could choose a certain size of crystal. Whatever I want to do there, I can come down here and specify an offset value, either a positive or negative value. And down here, I can also specify a spacing between crystals. But we're just going to use the default spacing for now. Now, there is a fair bit of editing that I want to do to this design, and I want to show you. I'm actually going to just click and drag and then right click to make a duplicate. Okay, so now I actually have two versions. So this is kind of the default, just adding outline, and then I'm going to show you how with a little bit of effort or not so much a little bit of effort, but with a lot of understanding of how the tools work here inside Artistic Crystals, how we can improve, in my opinion, how we can improve upon this default design. So we're going to start right down here in the corner. Now you can see what we have here, because these two lines converge at such a point that Artistic Crystals kind of just threw that in to best represent that point. And it actually did a very good job, in my opinion. If I really wanted that really sharp point, that would be the way to do it. But I want something a little bit different, and I just want to would I really make this change? Probably not, but I want to show you and give you an understanding of how these tools work, because the one big advantage with Artistic Crystals is the utter simplicity of the number of tools that are available to us, and yet the tools will get the job done. So let me show you something here. So I'm going to click on my outline, and you can see right down here we have 4 nodes. So when we did that auto trace function, it didn't do a great job at the corner, but yet even though this looks completely wonky, the end result when we're working with our rhinestone pattern is perfectly acceptable. Now if we were to cut this out of vinyl and have this wonky corner, we wouldn't like that out of vinyl. But when it comes to rhinestones, good enough. And that's what we're working for here in Artistic Crystals. So but I need to modify this. So here's what we're going to do. Up here, we have this edit shape nodes, and we need to modify these nodes a bit. So I'm just going to click, when I hover over a node, see how it kind of gets bigger? And I hover over this one, it gets bigger. So it kind of says, hey, this is me, I'm right here, but it's not actually selecting that node. I really need to click on it, and now it's selected. Okay, so now that is the node that I'm going to be editing. So when I right click, I have some options. I can select the polyline, select all, invert, add node, delete node. I can change it to a line, smooth the node, or split the outline. And for this case, I'm splitting the outline. So there's my split outline, and you can see what's happened here. There's a line, there's a gap that exists. Now, if I want to delete a node, I have to click on it, right click, and choose delete node. So yeah, and then now this node is the default selected node. If I want to delete this node, I just hover over it and hit delete node. But see what node it actually deleted? It deleted this one over here. And the reason for that is because that was the highlighted node. I have to actually click on the node. Now that is the node that I'm going to be editing. Now when I right click, I'm going to hit delete node. Okay? Now I'm gonna come over here. I'm not gonna click on the node, and I'm gonna right click and choose. See, I can't even do it right now. I can't even right click on that and delete it because it's not highlighted. And that's the point. Click on the node, then right click. Ah, yes. Now I can delete the node. Okay. So just understand those differences and how they work. Now, when I split the object, all right. Imagine, if you will, these fill colors down here. Okay, it's saying fill this container with this color. Well, I have a hole in my bucket right now, right here at this corner, because I split my line. So if I click on one of these fill colors, it doesn't actually allow me to do that. If I select my object and then click on my fill color, nothing happens because my bucket will not hold any paint because I have a hole in my bucket. Right? And so just understand how that works. Now, if I come and select that outline again and add crystals to it again, this is the point I want to show you. Let's look at that corner again. Well, now that's interesting. Look at how Artistic Crystals handled this corner. It comes in. Right now, these stones are not touching. And then it kind of, these stones really should continue on this line, and then these stones should continue on this line, but they don't. They actually, Artistic Crystals kind of just eliminates a couple stones and just tries to recreate that point with just those 2 stones. But why? Why does it do that? Well, the reason it does that is because right now it's looking at this object as one continuous line, because it is. It's one object. And so what I want to do is take this little curved part and make it its own little object. So let's come in here to this corner. Let's go back to our shape node tool. And let's click on a node, right click and choose the split outline function again. And then you can see right here, there's a little gap in and I can right click on this node and choose delete node because I highlighted it. And I'm going to click on this node, right click and choose delete node. And that takes care of that. But that didn't resolve the problem over here. And why is that? Well, again, right now, Artistic Crystals still sees this as one continuous object, even though we have gaping holes down here. So how do we resolve that? Well, we click on the object and right click, and then we can choose break apart. Now, what we're breaking apart are the individual lines of our object. And so now you can see this object is all by its little lonesome. So let me go ahead and undo that. So now you can see that these two stones right here are overlapping one another. And now you can see how Artistic Crystals handles this corner. These stones come along that line, and these stones come right along that line. Okay, so now I can come in here with my Node Edit tool, and I can just click on the line that I actually want to edit, and I can move this line. I can lengthen it. I can do a lot of different things with it, and I can just visually move it till I get the exact connection that I want with that line there. Now again, the way that Artistic Crystals handled it by default, I think actually they handled it better, but I just wanted you to understand how you can manipulate this because it's going to be very important in a moment. Now down here where we have this issue, well, I would just come in here and just eyeball it. You can see how that one stone is on top of another stone. We can just eyeball it. We can't snap to like the center of a node. I wish we could, but we can. So that's good enough for what we're going to do. There's a stone on top of a stone, but we're going to take care of that at the end. All right, so we saw how we handled it down here, and I thought it just did a good representation of how this real simple shape node tool works. Now let's put this to a more practical application. And right here on our letter H, this line right here, this is really ugly right here. So we have to do quite a bit of editing because I want these stones to come straight down to this point here. And so let's go ahead and take a look at how we're going to make those edits. So we're going to right click and we're going to choose to split the outline again. Okay, which we did. There's a tiny little gap there, right? And then we're going to come down here and we're going to do the exact same thing right here. We're going to select the node, right click, split the outline, and now you can see there's a tiny little gap there. Okay, which is what we wanted. And now we want to delete this line segment all the way back. So what we have to do is select that node, and I don't know, can we select a range of nodes? Maybe we can. And we'll go ahead and choose delete nodes. Yes, we can. So we can select more than one node, which is nice. So let's select those two nodes and choose delete nodes. We cut that all the way back. Now back up here, this node, we're just going to click and drag. And in fact, what I would probably do, let me undo that. What I would probably do is add a node. So I'm just going to click on the line and right click and choose add node. And what that will do is that will kind of anchor that spot. So when I move this, the rest of it doesn't move with it. And I can actually right click on that and I can, let's see here. Now this right here, let me just take a quick look at this. See that right there? See how when I move that line, so the line moves both at the top and the bottom, right? And typically that's not something we would want to do. So we're going to right click on the node and we're going to turn it into a cusp node. And now when I move it, I'm only moving half the line, right? So the bottom half of this line. So that's what we want. So then I can come down here and I'm just going to come and about approximate it there. Whatever I think it should be. And then I can kind of fine tune that, just like that. Okay, so now I kind of have this kind of the way I want it. Let's go back. Now, we didn't really see anything update, did we? And the reason that we don't see an update is because right now, Artistic Crystals still sees this H as part of the C. And if we look real close at the C, you can see these 2 points are not part of anything else. So what we have to do is right click and choose Break Apart. And as soon as we do that, look at that. It just filled in that hole. And that looks a lot better once we get our final editing done. That's going to look a lot better than what we had originally. So let's go back to our Shape Node tool here. And just like before, we're just going to click to add a node, and then we're going to click on this node to delete it. It just kind of cuts it back. Now you still see we have a problem there, so double click on the line, click on the node, right click, delete node. So now we have that spacing. Now we're going to do the same thing down here. We're just going to double click to add a node, click on the end node, and delete it. We still have a little bit of a spacing issue here, so just double click, click on the end node, and delete. So now we have it just the way we want. Now look at this. Look at this design. So you see how that letter H comes all the way through, and you can see that the spacing, all the stones are nice and perfect. And now compare that to the original. See? And I think that's where the differences really lie. You can see that we have this hole obviously here, and then this, because there wasn't room really to put another stone there, it did the best it could, but now we have that gaping hole, and now on the edited version we don't have that problem. Okay, and now down here again where Artistic Crystals, you can see where it kind of handled this point and just threw that stone in there. That's actually pretty good. But we have a similar issue here like with our letter E. I just would like to make a little bit of edit where these stones kind of come through the letter H. So let's look at that and show you another example. So go back to our edit shape nodes, select a node, right click, split the outline. Okay, so now we have a little gap there, which is perfect. That's what we're looking for. And we're going to delete the node, and we're going to delete the node back to that point there. And then up here, we're just going to come in here, and we're going to have to add a node somewhere. And then we're going to right click on that, and we'll choose split the outline right there. And you can see all the program does is just create a tiny little gap for us, which is perfect. That's exactly what we would want. And I'm just going to double click to add an anchor node there. I'm going to right click on that and make it a cuffs node, so that when I pull this node down, so you can see there when I pull that node down, we're going to anchor it down to the bottom of our C here. There we go. And once we convert this, then we can kind of fine tune things a little bit and make this exactly the way we want it. So now you can see kind of how this works. We actually have a top half of our line now. So here's, we have actually two different parts to our line. So what we're going to do here is we're going to break this apart. So we're just going to come in here with our selection tool, and we're going to choose break apart. So that breaks that apart. So now this piece of the letter H is separate from everything else. And then down here, the bottom half of the H we want to be separate as well. So we'll right click and we'll choose break apart. And now you can see that our letter H is definitely not part of our letter E. And we're going to come in here with our edit shape nodes, and we're going to add down here, we're going to add a node. Click on this node and delete. And then we have our letter H here, which I'm again going to come in here and add a node by double clicking on the line. Click on the end node, right click, and hit delete. And that will cut it back. I may have to cut it back a little bit more. And hit delete. And I guess we're going to have to go back a little bit more. Have to get aggressive with this. So we'll go back and hit delete there. Alright, so now we pulled that back as far as we needed to not interfere with our letter E. And maybe on this part of it, we have to come back a little bit too. And delete that end node there. But now we have a situation here where the top half of our letter E and the bottom half of our letter E are like two separate parts. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to select these two things again, and we're going to right click and choose combine, because now we want those to all be one. And the way we know this is going to work is like right here. If I zoom in really tight there, you can see these lines don't exactly line up. I'm going to select those two, and we're going to choose the join nodes function. And now those two have lined up the way we need them to. If I give them a fill, you'll be able to see this maybe a little bit better. So now we still don't have a fill because of this gaping hole down here, but now this is one continuous thing. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to double click to add a node down here, double click to add a node here, and then these two nodes, we're just going to right click and choose delete nodes, and that will really smooth things out right there, and it'll really look great. Okay, so we could just keep on going through all the letters, but hopefully you get the idea how you can manipulate some of these tools here in Artistic Crystals, if you're and do a similar job as what we can do inside CorelDRAW.